I want you to just picture the most stressful meeting you've ever been in.
Okay.
The stakes are incredibly high. Maybe the company's bleeding money. Maybe there's this huge PR crisis or, I don't know, a family intervention that's just gone completely off the rails.
Right, the air is thick.
The air is heavy.
Right.
And in that specific environment, what is the one thing everyone is absolutely terrified of?
Silence.
Silence. Yeah, total dead air. We are, I think, conditioned to believe that in a crisis, speed and volume are, well, they're the metrics of leadership. If you aren't talking, you aren't leading. If you're not arguing, you just don't care.
It's that bias for action just on steroids. We confuse activity with progress. And, in a high-stakes room, that almost always just manifests as noise.
But today, we're looking at source material that argues the complete opposite. We are doing a deep dive into the wisdom of the quiet elder, specifically an episode they did called The Silence That Spoke First. And the whole premise is going to annoy, I think, a lot of type A personalities out there. Before words are spoken, silence often chooses.
It's a really provocative idea, especially for, the learner audience. We have people who are used to hacking productivity. It's not about productivity in that sense.
Oh.
It's about a very specific type of cognitive discipline. We're going to unpack a story about a council, a crisis, and this one elder who, on the surface, just seems to be refusing to do his job.
Right. And just to be clear, we are not just talking about being quiet. I mean, anyone can just shut up.
Yeah.
We're talking about silence as a strategic weapon. But okay, let's set the scene first. The source describes this council. And this isn't some dysfunctional startup. These are people known for wisdom.
The text really emphasizes that. Their baseline is high functioning. It says, decisions were never hurried. Every argument weighed. So, under normal circumstances, these people know how to think. They are not amateurs.
But then the pressure cooker just gets turned on. A matter of great importance hits the table. And this is where the wheels just come right off. The source says, opinions arose immediately. Words filled the hall. And then there's this one phrase that really stuck out to me. Certainty competed with certainty.
That phrase, that is the diagnostic for everything that goes wrong in group decision-making.
What do you mean?
When certainty competes with certainty, you've stopped engaging in inquiry. You've started engaging in advocacy.
Advocacy.
You're advocating for your position to win, not inquiring what the truth is. It's a classic confirmation bias just fueled by adrenaline. Everyone in that room suddenly becomes an expert because they're terrified of the ambiguity.
It feels like a gladiatorial combat of ideas. The source mentions reasons overlapped. It's that moment, in a meeting where people start talking over each other.
Yeah.
You realize nobody's actually listening. They're just waiting for a gap in the audio wave to reload their own argument.
Exactly. It's what we call cacophony as control. If we just keep making noise, we feel like we're controlling this uncontrollable situation.
So in the middle of this whole verbal brawl, we have the anomaly, the silent elder. While everyone else is, hyperventilating opinions, he is doing, well, nothing.
Well, let's be precise, though. He isn't doing nothing. The text says he listened without interruption.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate for a second here. In a modern corporate setting, right, or even a political one, if everyone is debating the nuclear option and one guy's just sitting there staring at the table, he doesn't look wise.
No.
He looks checked out. He looks incompetent.
And that's a fair assessment of the optics. The story totally acknowledges that. The room didn't look at him with, reverence. They looked at him with annoyance. The text says his silence began to draw attention because it offered none.
Yeah, the source explicitly says people thought he was indecisive or indifferent. And frankly, I kind of get it. If I'm panic working to solve a problem and you're just sitting there being zen, I'm going to start to resent you.
But that resentment is fascinating, isn't it? It's psychological projection. They're projecting their own insecurity onto him.
How so?
They're uncomfortable with the silence because the silence forces them to confront the fact that they don't actually know the answer. His silence. It's like a mirror. It's reflecting their own chaos back at them.
So his lack of reaction makes their overreaction more obvious.
Precisely. But there's a technical aspect to what he's doing, too. He's maintaining what the poet Keats called negative capability.
Negative capability.
Yeah, the ability to exist in uncertainties and doubts without that irritable reaching after fact and reason. While they're all rushing to a hot take to relieve their anxiety, he is just holding the tension of the unknown.
Negative capability. I mean, that sounds like a superpower, but it feels like it would be torture.
It is torture. That's why nobody does it.
So the tension in the room, it hits this breaking point. The certainty has just clogged the drain. They are not getting anywhere.
Right.
Finally, probably just out of sheer frustration, they turn to the elder and basically say, well, what do you think?
And this is the trap. It's the availability heuristic trap. The pressure is on to just grab the most available solution and say, yeah, I agree with Bob. Let's do plan A. If he does that, he's just another voice in the choir.
But he doesn't. And this is the plot twist. He doesn't answer the question they asked him.
No, he rejects the premise entirely.
The source says he spoke of what had been missed. He pointed out assumptions made too quickly and voices unheard. He didn't say we should go left or we should go right. He said, you're reading the map upside down.
This is so critical. He wasn't operating on the level of content. He was on the level of process. Because he hadn't been wasting his cognitive load trying to formulate a rebuttal, he had all this bandwidth to see the structural flaws in everyone else's arguments.
He crowdsourced the error checking.
In a way, yes. He let them burn through all their bad ideas, watched where the logic completely failed, and then just simply pointed at the failure.
The source concludes that the decision was shaped not by the loudest voice, but by the longest silence. Which, I mean, it sounds great in a fable, but I really want to unpack the mechanics of this.
Let's do it.
The source breaks this down into 4 lessons, and I want to push on these because some of them feel very, very hard to apply in real life.
Let's get into the weeds then.
Okay, lesson 1. Silence can be a form of understanding. The text contrasts this with silence being passive. But again, how do you signal understanding when you're not saying anything? How do you do this without just looking like you're daydreaming?
You have to look at the signal-to-noise ratio. Most people in that meeting were, 90% noise, 10% signal?
Right.
The elder was 0% noise, but his internal processing was 100% signal reception. To apply this, you have to change your body language. Active silence is intense. You're taking notes, you're making eye contact, you are nodding, you're physically showing that you are downloading the data.
So it's what, performative listening?
It's visible processing. You're signaling, I am not speaking because I am currently running a simulation of what you just said. That commands respect. Checking out signals, I am not speaking because I don't care. The difference is just intensity.
That makes a lot of sense. It's the difference between a blank screen and a loading bar. You need to show the loading bar.
Exactly.
Okay, listen 2. Listening precedes clarity. The source argues the council failed because they tried to find clarity through speaking.
This is the old muddy water analogy. If you keep stirring muddy water, it stays opaque. If you just let it sit, the sediment drops and, well, you can see through it.
But let's talk about the biology of it. Why does speaking actually prevent clarity?
It's cognitive load. You literally cannot critique your own thoughts effectively while you are in the middle of articulating them. When you're speaking, your brain is in output mode. It's focused on syntax, persuasion, volume, reading the room. It shuts down the input mode that you need for synthesis. You simply cannot learn while you are talking.
So the council members were just, throwing half-baked ideas at the wall, hoping one would stick?
Yeah, but because everyone was talking, nobody was actually checking to see if they stuck. They were just creating this wall of sound. The elder was the only one with the bandwidth to actually assess the options.
Which brings us to, for me personally, the hardest lesson. Lesson 3. Not every response needs immediacy.
Ah, yes. The curse of the 3 dots.
Yes. You know that feeling on Teams or Slack where someone asks you a really complex question and you feel this panic to start typing immediately? Or on a Zoom call, a 3-second pause feels like an eternity.
That's the urgency trap. We conflate speed with competence. But here's the reality. Fast responses are usually system 1, thinking intuitive, reflexive, emotional.
Right, the knee-jerk reactions.
Slow responses are system 2, analytical, logical, deliberate. System 2 is the actual brain work.
Okay.
The council was stuck in system 1. They were reacting. The elder forced himself to stay in system 2. And the lesson here for you, the listener, is bold. You have to be willing to tolerate the awkwardness of the pause.
That is a big ask. To sit in a meeting and just say, give me a minute to think about that while everyone just stares at you.
It's a power move. Think about the most senior person in the room. Do they rush?
Usually not, no.
Usually not. They pause, they think, they speak slowly. Rushing is actually a sign of subservience. You're rushing to please the other person. Taking your time signals that your thoughts are valuable enough to wait for.
Wow. That completely flips the script. We think rushing shows we're on top of it, but it actually shows we're scrambling.
It shows you're reactive, not proactive.
Okay. That leads right into the final lesson, which I think is the synthesis of all of this.
Yeah.
Lesson 4, awareness speaks last.
Awareness speaks last. This is, I would argue, the most tactical piece of advice in the entire source.
Why is that?
Because of something called the framing effect. The person who speaks first, they set the frame. The problem is the budget. Okay, now everyone has to argue within that budget frame.
Right.
But the person who speaks last, they get to reframe the entire discussion.
Because they have all the data points on the table.
Exactly. If you speak first, you're guessing. If you speak last, you have the benefit of hearing everyone else's cards. You can see where Bob contradicted Alice. You can see where the strategy has a huge hole in the middle. You can synthesize.
So, the elder didn't just win because he was wise. He won because he had an informational advantage that he gained by shutting up.
Exactly. It wasn't magic, it was strategy. By the time he spoke, the room was exhausted, they'd burned off all their certainty, and they realized it got them absolutely nowhere. They were desperate for a synthesis. He provided the solution at the exact moment the market for it was highest.
It's almost like he let them tire themselves out.
Yeah.
Like a parent watching toddlers have a tantrum until they need a nap, and then saying, okay, time for bed.
It's a little patronizing, maybe, but yes. He let the chaos exhaust itself so that order could be introduced without any resistance.
So bringing this back to our listener, we aren't in some mythical council. We're in marketing meetings, engineering stand-ups, family dinners. How do we actually do this without just being that weird, quiet guy?
You start small. In your very next meeting, set a rule for yourself. You will not speak for the first 15 minutes.
15 minutes, that feels like a lifetime.
It does, but use that time. Don't just sit there. Map the arguments. Who's agreeing with who? What's the one assumption they are all making that hasn't been said out loud? Find the negative space in the conversation.
And when you do speak,
don't just add another opinion. Synthesize. Say something like, I noticed that Sarah and Mike are arguing about X, but I think we're all missing the underlying issue of Y. Be the one who connects the dots, not the one who just adds another dot.
That's the key distinction. Don't add a dot, connect them.
Right. And you have to recognize that this takes courage. It takes more courage to sit in silence when you think you know the answer than it does to just shout it out.
It's the courage to be misunderstood for a little while in exchange for being right at the end.
That's the trade-off.
I want to leave everyone with a final thought on this.
Yeah.
We live in a world that is just obsessed with hot takes. We reward the fastest tweeter, the loudest pundit, the quickest responder. But this deep dive really suggests that the real power, the power that actually shapes outcomes, it belongs to the observer.
It's the difference between being a participant in the noise and being the architect of the solution.
So the next time certainty competes with certainty all around you, and you feel that adrenaline spike telling you to jump in and fight, just take a breath. Wait, watch the pattern.
And have the courage to let the silence do the heavy lifting.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Let the silence settle, and we'll see you next time.